Hello and welcome to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast, your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. My name is Dr. Benjamin Alter. I'm the host of this podcast. Thanks for being with me and Dr. Susanna, the guest and the co-host on this week's episode. And this is kind of still part of the Locals series, connecting with amazing, inspirational healers and human beings in the Carbondale, Colorado area and the surrounding Roaring Fork Valley. And that's where we are. So it sounds fitting to have us, Dr. Susanna and myself, as guests on our own show. It's been a few months. So thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. We're happy to have your presence. And on this week's episode, even though we haven't recorded it yet, this is a live introduction. The intention of this episode is to kind of provide a reflection on the last year and share some learnings that both Dr. Susanna and myself have had over the year, both in our personal lives and in our professional lives. And also maybe from there, we'll see how the conversation goes, but from there, provide a little bit of insight and inside look into our day-to-day lifestyle, health, and wellness routine as it is now at the end of 2019. And knowing that it is a work in progress, a learning journey. And speaking of journeys, Dr. Susanna, I'm happy to be on a journey in life with you and happy that you're here and you've decided to join me in this week's episode.
Oh, thank you for having me, Ben. And yeah, it's so fun to be in the guest role. I guess, we're co-guesting this week's episode rather than co-hosting, it feels. But yeah, it's nice that we're able to have just more of a conversation with one another rather than our typical format of talking to our listeners.
I know, it's funny. Each time we start one of those Alter Your Health live episodes, which is, by the way, the odd numbered episodes on the podcast, like we start it and we've got this kind of plan to be really clear, straightforward, to the point in 20, 25 minutes. And I always feel like I'm trying to cram so much into those short episodes, and still they end up being not so short. So yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of space to reflect. And yeah, I don't know about you, but this year, it seems like this year has been one of those Alter Your Health live episodes. Just a lot of stuff crammed into a short year. Like, we've done so much, we've been moving so much, we've been working a lot. And not to say that it hasn't been an enjoyable process, but it has been a lot of stuff crammed into the year. What are your feelings?
It's definitely been a full year. Gosh. Yeah, and it went by really fast.
Totally.
I think about each day, and each day felt really full and, a good length. It's not like the days felt short. But what I find is that when you're really present in your life, when we're, really engaged in the work that we're doing on a daily basis, then the weeks go by so fast, the months go by so fast, and we've almost been in Carbondale for a whole year now.
I know.
Crazy.
I know. Well, on that note, since this is kind of the local series, I just had the idea to share just like a 2-minute snippet of how we came to Carbondale. Because by the way, like, I've spent a lot of time rebuilding the website, but maybe our listeners don't know. We're rebuilding the website, kind of refining it. It was getting a little clunky. So anyways, I went through all of the old podcast episodes in that process, And I came across that one. I'm not sure what the number was, but it was titled, "What Does Home Have to Do with Health?" And I felt it was so synchronistic and ironic that we recorded that episode in Carbondale in our van.
Before we knew we wanted to live here.
Before we knew we wanted to live here, we were like a few blocks down the road in our van on the street talking about this feeling of not knowing where home was, where, and, you know, having that inner sense of the feeling of being home and following that feeling. But yeah, fast forward, I guess that was like a year and a half ago. And a year and a half ago, we had no idea where we were going to call home. And now we're pretty happily, confidently calling Carbondale home.
It's true.
How did that happen in a year and a half?
How did that happen? And also, just to expand upon that, we were just talking over Christmas break when we were out of town that, gosh, we really don't like leaving Carbondale.
No. And it would be amazing to make 2020 the year of no leaving.
No air travel.
No air travel, or maybe keeping it to Colorado or something. But
right.
I don't think that's going to happen. We've got some plans. But anyways, we do love home.
We do love our home. And so how did we land here? Well, many of you may know, but probably a lot of you don't know, that Ben and I were nomadic for a few months of our lives. And that was when we had no idea where we wanted to live. We had a job opportunity in San Francisco in the Bay Area, but we turned that down because we felt it really wasn't a good fit for us. And when we turned that down, we realized, oh my gosh, we have this blank slate of what, the next year is going to bring. And so we loaded up our camper van, our Sprinter van, and decided happily that we would be nomads for a little bit. Just kind of practice online as we explored all the different states and provinces in United States and Canada. And we thought we were going to be nomads for a couple years, maybe.
Yeah, I definitely had that as the upper limit of how we would be doing that. But, we had this new business. We had just started Alter Health. We had just started the podcast. And turns out it was really hard to build a business and live the nomadic lifestyle. So we really did very little business building and a lot of just nomadic living through those few months, which brought us eventually through Colorado.
Yeah, we had the plan to come visit Ben's sister, your sister. I don't know who to talk to because you know the story.
Yeah, but you can talk to me.
I'll talk to you. Yeah, so we had the plan to visit your sister who lives in Gunnison, but I have a few friends in Carbondale, and so I decided I wanted to stop and see them. It had been a couple years, and really with no expectations at all. But I'd say as soon as we hit the Front Range, which is Denver, Boulder area, as soon as we came into Boulder, my heart just exploded open. And I went to undergrad in Colorado Springs. And for the listeners who don't know my history, I just loved my whole experience in college, going up to the mountains and snowboarding and mountain biking and rock climbing and just being in nature. And when I moved from Colorado, I thought that maybe I was done with Colorado. But gosh, when we came into Boulder and, you and I were in such an open state. We were just taking everything in, allowing our intuition and wisdom to guide us in our nomadic journey. But in an instant, I knew that I would be very happy moving back to Colorado.
Well, and, I was, like you mentioned, very open. We both were. And I was very perceptive to your state of being and seeing and feeling your joy and expansion really kind of rubbed off on me. And I was feeling it too, absolutely. I mean, but for whatever reason, I never thought that I would be a Colorado mountain guy and really a small town guy either to this extent. You know, Carbondale is a pretty small town, 6,000 people or so, and the surrounding area, like we know and appreciate, feels a little bit bigger with Glenwood Springs and Basalt and Aspen. But still, it was like, really? Like, this is the, you know, my rational mind was like, I don't know, Ben, I don't know if we can do this, but I was feeling it. Absolutely. And your friends took us out on the river, and it was a beautiful late summer day, and we both were feeling it. And we kind of made that decision, I think. I think we did in that day, probably, but we
on some level, yes.
On some level, the decision was made, but then we did a lot of intellectual rationalizing in terms of what would be best, and we just leaned into the feeling that we knew was true, and found a place and made it happen. And thanks to connections and synchronicities in the universe and being aligned and supported, one thing led to another, and here we are.
Here we are. And I think the really cool thing about that story was that for several months before we crossed the border into Colorado, you and I had really kind of been forcing our way to find a new home.
Oh man, looking at the map, we looked at all the medium-sized towns and cities and cool places that we've been to or wanted to go to, and we just went down and kind of checked them off the list, and they were all amazing places, beautiful places, you know, San Luis Obispo and Ojai and like all these West Coast, California and Ashland and Oregon, and it was just
Detroit.
Detroit, where Susanna's from. Yeah, that got checked off in about 10 minutes of sub-zero, gray sky, bitter, freezing cold, which is, by the way, for listeners out there, totally different than 0 degrees in Colorado.
Yes.
But anyways, we kind of surrendered the intellectual mind, kind of gave in and embraced this nomadic journey, which we thought might be a year or two. And it didn't last long. We got the answer, I think, very soon after we fully let go and surrendered, as that tends to happen.
Yeah, I'd say about 2 months. Well, I think even so it was 2 months into our van trip that we decided we wanted to live in Colorado. But I don't think it was really until halfway through that van trip that we really fully let go and said, you know what?
Totally.
I surrender.
Yeah, we spent time in British Columbia. I mean, yeah, we love it there. And I thought that might be home to at least, you know, like some part of the year or something. But anyways, you know, the other cool thing is that I think a lot of people try and choose where they want to live based on work opportunities and, you know, creating some path and structure for themselves then in that way. But we were really clear that we wanted to live where we want to live, and we weren't going to let, you know, whether or not naturopathic medicine and creating a practice here in Carbondale. Turns out it's a great, fun place to practice naturopathic medicine, as is probably any place in the world. But we didn't make the decision from that place of, like, you know, business rationale. We made it from purely a heart-aligned place, which we know very well that will never lead us astray.
It's true.
So that's enough reflecting on that topic. I want to shift gears, just for the sake of this podcast, to the topic of health and wellness and well-being, and maybe spend a few moments reflecting on experiences, learnings, happenings over the last year or so that have informed us personally and maybe molded us, mended us in some way that feels like it's supportive of our general trajectory in life of growing, of healing, of learning, expanding in that way. So when I bring that topic up, like what comes into your mind as a formative experience in the last year?
Great question. And what comes to mind are two things. And one is in more of the professional realm, and the other is in a more personal realm. And what should I start with? Professional.
What first came into your mind?
Well, what really comes to mind is so I'm a fairly fresh doctor, new doctor, but I started really learning about practicing medicine in medical school, of course.
I hope so.
And in medical school, we get that clinical experience of working with patients and developing treatment plans with them. But in medical school, we're working under the supervision of a doctor. And on most shifts, we're suggesting to the patients the recommendations that the doctor gives, of course. On some shifts, students can speak up and say, hey, I suggest this, or let's do this, and some doctors let you do that. But otherwise, it's pretty much that you're just the middleman between the doctor and the patient. And so this year for me was really a big year in fully stepping into practicing in the way that is completely my style, completely my way, and gaining confidence in that. And like many of our listeners know, we really focus on lifestyle medicine, and we really focus on bringing in more of a whole food, plant-based diet. And I would recommend that my patients and clients really start from the bottom level up, that foundational level. And maybe we'd bring in some supplements here and there. Maybe we'd do some homeopathy. But it was amazing and also kind of funny to witness my patients and clients really experiencing shifts in their health just from lifestyle change. And I say just from lifestyle change because so many people overlook it again and again, and they really think that you need the fancy potion or the fancy procedure.
Yeah, I remember feeling really, on that note, like really kind of insecure, like the patients and clients that were coming to see us wanted something beyond our recommendations of diet and lifestyle and mindset. They wanted something to take home and swallow.
Exactly.
Like a pill of some sort, or a procedure or a protocol or a practice or something like that. And on one hand, it's like really kind of scary to just rely on nature itself and information itself and self-healing itself and just living purely aligned with how nature intended. It's scary professionally, I think, like what do you mean I don't need to, you don't want me to take anything? But on the other hand, it's really extremely empowering once we do witness and have the experience of the power of nature in healing, the power of food in healing, the power of our minds in healing. So it's like once we kind of take away that, I don't know, I'll use like the term crutch, like that crutch of the capsules or the supplements or the vitamins or whatever it is. Once we take away that and then really harness and experience the healing power within, it's like once you see that, once you have that experience, there's no turning your head on it. There's no going back, at least for me and you.
Exactly. Yeah. So this year has really, it's helped me gain the confidence in, it's not just lifestyle change. Like lifestyle change is the medicine. It is the most powerful and sustainable medicine. And yeah, these other supplements and, like you're calling them crutches. It's like when we take those away, we give the patient the opportunity to really stand on their own and
The training wheels.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's just been really beautiful and awesome for me to see patients and clients realize all of that themselves as well.
So kind of going back to my question, was there any thing happening, occurrence specifically that was formative on that, in that topic?
Like one specific instance, or
one instance, or like a book or a chapter or a blog or a video or something that really kind of woke up this fact inside of you?
Well, what comes to mind is working with one of my clients, and she was already open to adopting a whole food plant-based diet. And even though she had educated herself on it and read a ton of books on it, she wasn't having success in really implementing it in her life. And so I really helped her like nail down a good solid meal plan, eating plan, really helped optimize the food-like supplements she was taking. So what I mean by that are not all these pills, but the hyper-nourishing food powders, things like green powders and things like that.
Turmeric and ginger and all these kind of food herbs that are really healing.
Exactly.
Cool.
And I did give her a homeopathic remedy as well. But within the next follow-up, she says, "Hey, I'm already losing all of this water weight. I'm feeling more energized." And it was just after a couple of weeks. And so, I think up until that point, for me, I knew the power of a whole food plant-based diet personally in my body, but I didn't get that experience in the clinic, of course, in the teaching clinic.
Well, yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, she was my first client, and to get that success from her so quickly, that feedback was really,
So
really
you said
awesome.
This was your first client, or like the first client ever?
Well, no, not first client
But
ever, but
first client who really kind of dove in with you and adopted this.
yeah, exactly.
And that, in witnessing you from my perspective, for me this year has been, for you, it's been about confidence. And yeah, you've got it. You've got a lot of confidence.
Oh, well, thank you.
Not in like an overconfident, arrogant way, of course. I mean, Susanna is like the furthest thing from arrogant, but yeah, you are confident in your medicine. You're confident in your voice, and that's a healthy, cool place to live from.
Well, thanks. And what I want to add to that is that personal piece that also came up when you asked me the original question. And really the personal piece, it's related to that confidence piece, because I remember my New Year's intention last year was to become more comfortable speaking on camera. And so I decided to commit to an Instagram live every day on my personal account.
How long? For a month or what?
I didn't really set a time limit. I guess I decided to do it until I didn't need to do it anymore, until I felt comfortable. And in the beginning, I would really notice all the nerves come up, all of the thoughts of insecurity. And what I would continue to remind myself was that, one, it was totally okay to be nervous. And that, two, those nerves were just coming from insecure thoughts that, I was really used to taking seriously in the past. So thoughts about, oh, no one cares what I have to say, or I'm not articulate enough to be on camera, or I'm not whatever enough, this enough, that enough, I'm just not enough in general. All these thoughts, I was so used to taking them seriously, and in the past that really kept me from doing anything of that nature. Even though naturally as a little kid I loved performing, I loved singing in front of people, but at a certain point, I think in my teenage years, I just started really believing in those insecure thoughts that came into my head.
Yeah. Well, I just had the memory of, I think it was over the summer when we were back at your home in Grosse Pointe. And we came across those old videos, and I don't know how old you were, like 7, 8?
Yeah, about, yeah.
7 or 8. And Susanna was like hosting a talk show on this old school camera, and she was being really goofy, wearing all these like outfits and wigs and stuff. And you were at that point very comfortable on that camera.
Yes, I was.
And it's funny how life happens and insecure thoughts happen, and we take these thoughts seriously. And then before long, we are totally living in our alternative self-created reality that is separate from our true nature.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. So having that big intention in the beginning of the year has really helped me help clients with similar issues. And, you know, what's interesting is that fear of being on camera, I actually overcame it pretty quickly. Yeah. Within the second week or so, I was like, looking forward to being on camera.
Time for a new year. Done with 2019 already in January.
Right, but that didn't mean that the insecure thoughts weren't coming in anymore. Right. They just became less and less important to me. And so it's really awesome to have that personal experience of overcoming a fear like that, because it comes up so often with patients and clients who have fears about this or that, and it's all related to health. It's all related to physical health, because our mind and body are not separated.
Totally.
So, yeah, I'd say that's been a really awesome understanding to just deepen within myself and convey it to clients and patients so they can understand it within themselves.
What I'm really hearing is how that experience for you of transcending the insecurities, for lack of a better term, and how you were able to do that. You know, it's so much more than just cultivating confidence. It's cultivating that ability to transform and transcend anything, just knowing the impermanence of the human experience and how we can shift and create, once again, our own reality.
Yes.
And, you know, it's like the application of that in life is limitless. So
yeah,
it's almost like now what, you know, you've gotten the confidence, like, check, what's next to transcend. It's like this, you know, you've got the confidence now to transcend anything. Maybe, I don't know, what is next, like what's the next hurdle or obstacle or step?
Good question. I think what bubbles up, because at every point, I mean, for everyone, at any point in your life, there's usually something that's kind of hanging out under the surface. And
totally. And then we get rid of something, and then there's another thing.
Exactly. And so I think what's bubbling up right now, as I'm very much in my Saturn return, is dealing with thoughts of uncertainty about, you know, where exactly I am in my life in my role as a doctor, and how can I serve most, and how can I really live this life to the fullest. So there are thoughts of insecurity that come up, and if I take them seriously, that leads to lots of fear and just kind of feeling lost and feeling uncertain. But if I remind myself that those thoughts are really just thoughts, which means they're formless energy, and that they all have an expiration date, they all, you know, move through us just like clouds move through a sky, and that they don't mean anything, then I can just kind of ride out that wave until I'm back at my center. and my innate peace inside. And because I don't think what we haven't said this episode yet is that when we're at a peaceful state, when we have a clear mind, that's when all the answers come. That's when all the aha moments come. You know, that's like for us when we really knew we wanted to move to Carbondale. It was a strong knowing feeling. We didn't think our way to get there, you know?
There were no kind of spreadsheets and rational analysis involved.
Exactly.
It was the true feeling, which, you know, you could do the spreadsheets and analysis to reconfirm or back up that feeling, but the feeling is what we're going after.
Exactly. And you can't fabricate that feeling with thoughts.
Yeah. Well, kind of going back again to my initial question, you know, the like over the past year, any real experiences specifically, or teachers or books or podcasts or videos or whatever that really stand out in your awareness as being pivotal in your new confidence and your new kind of insights around the impermanence of thought and how to navigate that mind, thought, consciousness world?
Definitely. A few things that come to mind are our teacher, our mentor in the 3 Principles community, Dicken Bettinger. Ben and I went to a 3-day retreat in Crested Butte, and being in the energy of Dicken is always really enlightening and just helped me really anchor myself in my innate peaceful state of who I am. So that was certainly great. But I would say also that your podcast interview with some other locals here in Carbondale, Deva and Eaden.
Oh, just a few weeks back.
It's so great and timely, because I'd say this whole year, if I were to put one theme on it for me, it would be gaining confidence in my innate wisdom, in my inner guidance. Intuition, yeah. Exactly. And that's really a lot of what Deva and Eaden talked about. And so it's always great to hear other people talk and confirm what I feel has been really solidifying within myself. And yeah, that was a really great podcast, I'd say.
And for listeners out there, Dicken was also a podcast guest, I think over a year ago now, back actually at the end of, somewhere at the end of 2018, episode number 60. I'll remember that one because it's one of the more popular ones. Dicken's great. And yeah, he has led to many of insights for me as well. And yeah, we're grateful for you, Dicken.
We are. And Deva and Eaden.
And
all the other great guests on this podcast.
All the guests on the podcast, and really all the human beings in this world that are in all ways teaching us something, right?
Right. But what about you, Dr. Benjamin?
Oh.
Let's flip this question around and direct it to you.
Okay.
What do you...
You have to ask it, yeah.
I'll ask it. In this last year, explain some really pivotal moments or really big aha moments or big insights, big growing experiences, something that really stands out to you.
I don't know why it's so hard to land on a thing, but honestly,
don't overthink it.
Yeah, don't overthink. Honestly, the first thing that came up, which is so interesting, is just a few weeks ago when I was sick. For those of you who don't know, a few weeks ago came down with a really intense flu virus of some sort, and it knocked me out really hard for 24 hours or so. And it's my system is so interesting. You've witnessed on a number of occasions how like I can be really incapacitated, like in either, a bummed wrist or knee, and then I heal so dramatically fast. And that's a sign of vitality. Give myself a pat on the back. But anyways, this flu virus really knocked me out and kind of opened me up, like is really how it felt. I felt very vulnerable. Like, we were down in Tucson visiting my dad, and I was I was very uncomfortable, physically, and I was, extreme pain and no energy and couldn't eat or walk or talk, and just felt really like I was a pain in the butt. Like it was a pain in the, like I was kind of a pain in the butt because we went down there to have fun, to enjoy a quick trip, quick visit, with family. And it's like, damn, like I can't go riding bikes with you, can't go hiking with my family, can't do any of these things that I set out to do. And I just surrendered and laid back and received support from you, from my dad, from my stepmom. And I realized that it's not so often that I totally am incapacitated and like that, to the extent that I rely on the support of others to feed me, to help me to drive the van. You drove. I couldn't
Ben
even drive.
let me drive, which is a big deal.
There was no way that I could even drive. So anyways, that feeling of surrender and vulnerability cracked me open. And then we went to my mom's house back up in Phoenix for a quick night before we drove to Colorado. And
you were still in the thick of it.
And I was still in the thick of it that second night. And I had a intense sauna session right before I hopped into a wet t-shirt and bundled up in under like 6 layers of blankets in bed. And for those of you listening, that's, the go-to hydrotherapy treatment at home for many things. But that's another topic. So anyways, that night's sleep also was so intense and crazy. I mean, I literally had like these, I wouldn't even call them dreams. They were like experiences of dying and like being born. And I woke up a number of times, like many times, and just completely drenched in sweat, and it was wild. So anyways, that after being sick in that way, and it's interesting that, just to go a little deeper, it's interesting that the week before I was very depressed and feeling disconnected and just kind of bogged down energetically, emotionally. And as happens from time to time for me, that's, those feelings are no stranger to me. But it was a big wave of depression that kind of knocked me out in other ways for a day or two. And then I just felt such a shift after the physical incapacitation of that flu virus. I felt such a big shift in my mind and my body. I felt so much more clarity and peace and groundedness. It's like every time, I'm sure many people might have similar experiences. Like, there's waves of depression or whatever you want to call it. I just use the term depression just because people understand what that is. But there's these waves, and then like every time the wave passes, there's a new sense of clarity, understanding, groundedness, and it's like the extent or the degree to which I feel depressed is proportional to the degree to which I feel like like at peace on the other side of things. So more depression leads to more peace, and it's really kind of funny how that tends to happen. So I don't know if there's like a huge tidal wave like in the works to get me to my next phase or whatever that might be, but it's like it doesn't matter. It's like there with each kind of coming and going of the tides. It's like, oh, like okay, I'm cool. Things are okay. There's trust in myself. There's trust in the universe. And it's like on some level, nothing matters. I feel grateful for life itself, and anything that I do with life is just kind of an added bonus of awesome human experience. Anyways, that kind of got super deep pretty quick, but that's what comes to mind when I think of kind of experiences over the last year. And maybe that came to mind just because it's relatively fresh a few weeks ago. But
yeah, well, what I really hear in that story, and yeah, I was there with you witnessing it all. It's such a great example of the self-regulating and self-healing and self-balancing power of both the mind and the body. Because, yeah, we could easily judge that experience as like, oh, what? Ben has depression? Oh, there's something wrong with it, you know? He caught the bug. Oh, I guess he's not that bad. You know, we could obviously judge it as that. Yeah. But that's not the truth. It's like sometimes we need to get kind of sucked into our negative thoughts in order to get us back on track. It's like the rumble strip that you always talk about.
It's like, and it's like a new experience relating with the rumble strip. And for those of you who haven't heard the analogy before, it's like we're on this path, we're on this road, and the rumble strips are those, bumps that wake us up if we're drifting asleep and falling off the side of the highway. And that's kind of the symptoms of tension or the feelings of disconnection or depression or anxiety or whatever your flavor is. But it's like it's a new relationship with that rumble strip, because I think before I had this feeling of, okay, I know the rumble strip's there, but I'm going to do my best to like
stay away from it,
not approach it, just keep my eyes on the center line and, move in that direction. But it's like trust in the rumble strip. And like I can, like when I inevitably do go over those bumps in the road that wake me up, I can like relax into them, and they like bounce me back. As one of our other teachers in 3 Principles says, with the cork in the butt. Yeah. It's like we all human beings have cork in our butt. And what he means by that is we have this buoyancy that brings us when we feel like we're just sinking to the bottom of the ocean,
just drowning.
All we got to do is drop the weight and we shoot back up to the surface, because we've got this innate health built into us.
Right. And in that analogy, the weight is the heaviness of our thoughts, of our thinking. So we just need to drop those and we float back to the surface.
So this new trust and comfort in the rumble strip, in the tension, in the depression, in the anxiety, whatever the feelings are. It's like, it's embracing them. Mm-hmm. Because I think on some level I intellectually, conceptually knew that, the path of human evolution and growth is embracing the emotional experience. And I kind of knew that in my intellect, and I still know it in my intellect, but I have had more experience of actually doing it. And I also know that it's inevitably deepening these experiences. So I'm not suggesting or thinking that, oh, I've got it, and now it's all downhill from here. Who knows?
It's so true. It's so true. I think a lot of people say, oh, yeah, you got to embrace all emotions. But then when you find yourself in it, it's like, who actually enjoys that?
Sounds good.
It is possible. And yeah, what you're saying is that it's like you let go of the judgment of being in the mood. You just really, you rode the wave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
So that was it. And it's interesting how it's like you don't need to go to a seminar or a workshop or read any books or anything like that to gain the experiences. It's like life gives them to us. And it's like, how are we gonna use that? Are we gonna use life as our seminar and opportunity and learning experience? Are we gonna like just kind of go about our life without that awareness and then seek a weekend retreat somewhere to get that?
Right.
Or and when we get it in the weekend retreat, it's always kind of to some degree an intellectual exercise.
Right, exactly. It's like, I think my tendency in the past was to judge how my life was going and go to seminars to try to fix how my life was going, rather than...
I don't think you're alone there. Yeah.
Yeah, rather than be in life fully and accept and surrender and be open to all the learning opportunities.
Yeah. Anyways, that's it for me. Any other questions?
Well, I'm curious because we talked about talking about how we go about our actual day-to-day self-care. And
should we shift into that?
Yeah. And I was curious what is coming to mind for you when you considered translating what we've already talked about into the actual physicality of waking up and moving through a day.
Well, I think it might be helpful to kind of bridge the gap to some degree of what we've been talking about. We didn't plan this. We didn't have any plans, but what has come forward in this conversation is just mindset stuff, for lack of a better term, and maybe weaving in some like physical insights as well, or like how these kind of mental, emotional, spiritual insights have translated into physical world reality in a practical day-to-day.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, I'm kind of are you asking me a question or
No. Well, yeah, I'm curious if you have something you want to say it.
Oh, if uh-oh. Well,
if not, I'll say it.
What's coming to mind before we kind of launch into that direction, something that we talk about often is on the topic of behavioral change, which a lot of people are wanting to change their behavior. And there's so much more to it than reading the book and following the protocol. Because when the mind and the understanding is not also on board and aligned, then it becomes an exercise of willpower, which burns out. That's what willpower does, because it is not connected with the infinite wellspring of energy as authentic power. So getting the mind on board is really critical for lasting, sustainable peace, health, well-being, both on kind of a, inner peace, inner well-being level, as well as our kind of day-to-day, blood work, cholesterol, weight, whatever it is. It all hinges upon how we're relating to our behavior.
100%. Yes. And that's why when we talk about implementing change in life, we always guide our patients, our podcast listeners, everyone back to really tuning in to that inner wisdom and trusting it. Even if for that moment it might not be aligned with whatever nutrition book you're reading, to really trust the body. And I feel this year, as I've been developing my trust in my inner wisdom in other areas of life, it's certainly something that I do on a day-to-day basis with food choices, with exercise, with everything.
Yeah. Well, can I share an observation of you in the last year, maybe plus?
Sure.
Okay. Well, Susanna, for those who don't know, you really have had a tendency to read a book and get kind of hooked in the ideology and the philosophy conveyed in said book. And we'll use kind of medical medium as one example. Like there was a period of your life where it's like, I don't know about nutritional yeast.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know about, what are the other things? I don't know about whole grains. And you've kind of been there, followed that, and have evolved or shifted away from ideologically, dogmatically, rigidly following some sort of protocol or procedure or something like that, to really coming inward and trusting what's right for you. Because without going on another tangent, like we talk about individuality, like everyone's got their own path and journey, and everyone's got their own ideal specific diet in the moment. But the concept of bio-individuality and how like, oh, if you're from this country and this blood type, then you might need this and that. Like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about individuality within the context of the laws of nature. And that individuality does indeed shift from moment to moment based on the inner chemistry or physiology or thoughts or feelings or emotions or wisdom.
Yeah, or just that vital force that courses through us at all times.
Mm-hmm.
It leads us to different things in different moments.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's true. I've really shifted away from being more in my head about food choices and really sticking to what I've learned and read, to being more in my body about the food choices. And yeah, I would say, for example, at the beginning of the year, I really wasn't doing that many nuts and things like that. And all of a sudden now we're eating more nuts.
We had a banana nut butter sandwich when we were skiing, and it was delicious and also nutritious.
Yes. And this is really, really important because, for example, when we have clients come to us and say, well, I really like what you guys are saying, but I cannot give up oil. I'm just not going to give up oil because it's going to cause too much stress for me. We say, that's great. Yeah. That's fine. That's something that your wisdom is telling you to continue doing right now.
Totally.
And we're going to support you in that.
Or meat, fish, dairy, and eggs for that matter. Like, it doesn't, like, cool. Do it until you have that stroke of insight. I think because we do trust that each individual is connected with wisdom. We don't trust, we know.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of trusting, we know. And that wisdom is going to be guiding that individual regardless of what we say or do.
Exactly. So we may come out with a 9-day cleanse for you or an 8-day whole food plant-based challenge for you. And it may seem like we're putting out dogma or we're putting out a protocol, and we are, we're putting out the information that we know to the best of our understanding is going to be the most supportive for most people in the long run. But that doesn't mean that you need to follow
And
it
it's
to a T.
And and also backed by science. You know, for rigorous science for decades and decades and centuries.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
But anyways, time is ticking, and
let's get to the good stuff.
Yeah, let's get to the good stuff. Let's wrap this up with our day to day as it is now. And you go first. Like, what would you like to share about your health, wellness, nutrition, if that feels right for you, routine, in this moment, on this day, and anything that's like shifted or evolved in the last year to put you on this now moment path?
Okay. Well, I'll preface it by saying that I am very intentional with each and every even teeny decision throughout the day to check in with my intuition. I think we've already said that.
Yeah. So that is a big kind of preface.
It's asterisk. A big preface, because otherwise we just do things on autopilot or do things from our head. So typically it looks like waking up, drinking hot lemon water first thing. I like to have my bowel movement in the morning. Oh, is that too much information?
Too much information on the Alter Your Health podcast?
Important. Guys, if you aren't pooping
enough
every day, that's an issue.
On that note, you should be pooping 2 or 3 times a day, but that's, another story. You'll get there if you're not already.
Right. But once I have been emptied, then I will typically move into exercise or some form of movement. There are some rare days I might wake up and feel like my body needs the rest, but most days I'm happy to wake up and move in whatever way my body is telling me to move. And I think I can reflect on a change between last year and this year. This year I was much more intuitive with my exercise decisions. In the past, I would get really excited about, for example, Fitness Blender has these 8-week fitness routines for you to do.
You were really into that for a while.
Right. And one thing I have noticed about me and my evolution of self-care is that sometimes I will flow into wanting structure, and sometimes I'll flow out of wanting no structure at all. And I think that's also part of the natural rhythm of being a human. And what's great is that when we do really follow that desire to do something that's more structured, whether it's following a food protocol or following an exercise protocol or whatever, like a detox protocol, we learn a ton in that experience. And then what we can do after that experience is take what we like and leave what we don't like, or do some things one day and some other things another day. And so right now in the phase that I'm in right now, it's very flowy, it's very unstructured, it's very just tuning into my wisdom.
It's always like that, Susanna. I mean, for just to put, say it from where I sit, Susanna's either flowing like a butterfly or she's flowing like a dandelion spore. Like,
just different flavors of flowing.
Yeah, both are flowing. Yeah. But anyways.
Yes. Unless I'm stuck in my head. But yeah, and then with food, so after movement, then I'll have a smoothie, because I'm still waiting for me to get sick of smoothies, and it's not happening. I love starting my day with smoothies. So I'll have a big smoothie, and then I typically am guided to go do some work, or if we're on vacation, I'm guided to have some fun.
Or your schedule, your client. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Or I have a client scheduled. And for lunch, I guess what's new in the last few weeks is that I've been eating savory cooked lunches. Whereas in the summer, I was wanting a lot more raw, fresh fruits, like another smoothie for lunch, for example. And I feel like my body really likes that cooked meal at lunchtime. It's very nourishing and grounding in the wintertime. And then in the afternoon, either I'm so focused on work and I just want to do more work, or I want some fresh air, I want some movement, so I'll go out for a walk or whatever, or I'll go do some errands.
You make it sound like you work like, oh, a few minutes here, a few minutes there.
Oh, I do?
Well, I mean, but I guess I'm not asking you about your work routine. I'm asking you about your
self-care
your
routine.
Wellness
routine, yes.
Self-care, yeah.
Oh, and also I'll say I like to shower in the morning most mornings and end on cold, of course.
See.
And then fast forward to dinner time. This is when I usually ask you, what do you want for dinner? What are you craving?
What do you want?
And when I ask you, what are you craving? I'm also checking in with me about what I'm craving for dinner.
And also, just to pause you, maybe we prepare a new meal 3 times a week. Yeah. And otherwise, we're eating some variation of leftovers. Yeah. So we're not spending a lot of time in the kitchen cooking. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Unless you get a hit of inspiration.
Unless I get a big hit of inspiration to make a big gourmet dinner. But it's true. It's true. But every night typically looks like we start with a green leafy salad. And recently our bodies haven't been craving a huge amount of raw roughage. So the salads have been smaller, which is fine.
Yeah, it's true. True.
Because it's cold here. And then we'll have a nice big starchy dinner, usually with potatoes, rice, beans, veggies. And then we typically end on a sweet note. Sweet and bitter note. Bittersweet note with some raw cacao and some dried figs. Or maybe we'll have a special chocolate bar that's sweetened with raw honey or something like that. Mm-hmm. And maybe we'll have a cup of tea. Yeah. And we'll go to bed.
Yeah. And maybe watch something.
Maybe
play something.
We've been playing a lot more recently.
Well, okay. Yeah. Susanna's been playing a video game on her phone. Is that what you're talking about?
No, that doesn't count.
Oh. And Scrabble and...
Scrabble is what I'm talking about. We've been playing a lot of Scrabble. Yeah. So I like the increase of play in our lives.
Yeah. It is, whenever we go back to your family, there's always a puzzle happening. There's not always, but sometimes games happening. And it's a good reminder to weave that in.
Definitely. Yeah. And I just want to end before we go on to your description of your day that another big part of my self-care or wellness is catching myself when I get into thoughts of should, like, oh, I should be doing this today, or I should be more productive and do this today, or what? I'm not wanting a smoothie, and to go with it and not question where our wisdom is guiding us, because that constant kind of should, if we buy into those should thoughts, it leads us away from really our true nature. But also when we're just dealing with those shoulds and battling with those shoulds all day long, it burns a lot of precious energy. Yeah.
And as what's coming to me now is back to the conversation with Deva and Eaden, episode number 148. They remind me that whenever we don't listen to our yeses, it actually clouds our ability to really hear and resonate with that. Because it gets all mucky.
Right.
So
and that's
refining that in every moment.
Definitely. And that's totally been my experience as I've deepened my trust in my innate wisdom and my yeses. I've become more sensitive to them. So it's not as hard for me to distinguish between what's my authentic intuition and what's my monkey mind negative thinking.
Because it comes with a feeling. That's really we can talk about that maybe another time.
Okay, so let's hear about you and your day.
Well, luckily, my day is not all that different from Susanna's. I don't have to reiterate, things, but I'll just state that my wisdom has been guiding me to move more in new ways, specifically like skiing, and that's a new activity for me, learning how to ski again after about 15 or so years without not on skis. So that's been a fun journey, and also running. I used to be more of an endurance type of athlete, and I don't know what to say. I think that there's something there. I think that there is something in the mountains. I think there's something in the mountains that really, because the reason why I say that, because I'm not alone. There's a lot of endurance athletes in the mountains, and I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg, which came first, the endurance athletes or the mountains, or if they come to the mountains. But anyways, I'm feeling it. And it feels good to stress my body in that new way and find discomfort zones and play with that and allow my wisdom to guide me through that and keep my ego in check through that process.
That
so
healthy stress.
Yeah.
That healthy stress that helps us.
Well, I think all stress is healthy.
To some extent, yes.
I think all stress is healthy, and that's also another conversation.
Right.
But in terms of food, nourishment, same stuff. I've also been enjoying the soups. Usually we've been making the huge Instant Pot soups that last us a few days, filled with some lentils, potatoes, veggies, and whatnot. And what else? Yeah. What else? I've been also really refining on, because this is relevant to wellness, like you pointed out, the shoulds. I've also been really refining my attunement to the stress, anxiety, tension, specifically around work projects. And when I did feel anxious, tense in the past, I would literally move into that with more force. I would gotta do it, gotta finish it. Mm-hmm. I'm anxious, I've gotta get done with the anxiousness. Mm-hmm. And I'd do more anxious stuff. Yeah. And move into that. But I'm learning that it's actually possible and more healthy to not do that. And I think that's really important, like as you said, because let's face it, if we're constantly approaching tension and moving into tension in that sort of type A or, sort of way to just like do it. Yeah. Tension. I can carry more tension, carry more stress. That disrupts our physiology, like straight out. Mm-hmm. And it also disrupts our peace of mind, of course. And I can say that I feel more peaceful today than I did a year ago. And I was also, what's coming to me now is this kind of up and down, zigzag, all over the place journey of growth, life, stuff. And like, if you were to catch me on any day of the week over the last year, it's a flip of the coin as to whether I would tell you things are going good or things are going bad. It's a flip of the coin. Maybe not quite a flip of the coin, but anyways, you get the picture. But like, it's so helpful to kind of reflect and look back and see and feel that trajectory. Mm-hmm. Because like the zigzags, you can't get anything out of it. It's all that noise, that signal to noise ratio for the physicists out there. Like, you got to get rid of all that noise and just focus on that growth, on that learning, on that healing. And remember that the zigzag journey is
Human.
great and human and literally creates that upward trajectory and growth through life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I've observed you as being more peaceful in the last, I'd say, quarter of the year for sure. Definitely. Of course, there's still going to be the waves of when we're not peaceful.
Yeah, but that's the rumble strip.
That's
and
the
you
rumble
can
strip.
relax into that.
Exactly.
And bounce back or shoot up or whatever it is.
Well,
wrapping up this conversation, I thought maybe we could take, we're already at an hour and 11 minutes or 10 minutes. But real quick, wrapping up some kind of announcements, like in 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. Do I do it? You do it.
We've got some announcements. At Alter Health. Like I said, I redid the website. I think it'll be shifted over by the time this goes out, which is cool. And same URL, of course, alter.health. And we are launching a whole food plant-based challenge, which is happening on our Facebook group. And our Facebook group is plant-based and stress-free. We've changed the names a few times, but we're refining it and kind of honing our direction with this group, and this feels good for now. So plant-based and stress-free, find the group at facebook.com/groups/alterhealth.
Yes. And so that whole food plant-based challenge is an 8-day challenge, and it's totally free. We welcome and invite all of you, or if you know someone who's kind of on the edge about bringing more plants into their life, then this would be awesome for them. We are by no means forcing you to be totally whole food plant-based for the 8 days, but that is the direction that we're all moving into in the program.
Just more plants, less junk.
Exactly. And so we'd love to have you.
Yeah. And any other things bubbling up for you?
Don't think so.
Announcement wise. Okay, then just a reminder for podcast listeners, I am truly so grateful for any sort of feedback, support, whatever it is, liking, subscribing, hit those buttons. And it does mean a lot to my ego. And it also means a lot to my soul, because I take everything that you say to heart and use it to learn and grow and evolve this podcast and the information, the content in that positive direction to inform and inspire you and the world to live the best, healthiest life. So thank you for that feedback, that support. And also feel free to send this episode or any other to a friend, a loved one, whatever it may be. Oh yeah. And lastly, maybe this is a good time to just sprinkle in real quick that starting mid-January, we are launching a 12-month program. This is the first time we've ever done such a thing, a 12-month program. And we're really excited about it because in our experience, 12 months is a great time to experience a true total transformation. So through this 12 months, without going into all the details, you will receive holistic, comprehensive support when it comes to your whole food, plant-based nutrition journey, and also understanding mind, thought, and consciousness, living empowered in your life. You can find out more and apply for the mastermind at www.alter.health/mastermind.
We're so excited.
We are. It's true. And on that note, we are grateful for you. We love you. And we look forward to seeing you on the next Alter Your Health Live.
Peace, love, and until next time.
Bye for now.
Isn't that how you end it?
Isn't that how you end it?
Yeah.
Okay.